Okay, so you have a perfect deck. You've been working on it for weeks or for months. You've tweaked it, you've play tested it, you've ripped it apart, you've adjusted it, and you've played it again, and you have a tight 60 card list that is just exactly what you want. And all of a sudden, a new set is coming out. You've looked at the spoilers, and there's some great cards for it. What do you do? What do you take out? What do you put in? Or do you be a rebel and play over 60 cards? Well, Lorcana Lovelies, I'm here to give you a hand with that. And I would say that deck editing, especially to put new stuff in from a new set, is something that would be very kind of like situational depending on what deck and the details about what you're playing. But I'm going to show you how I'm going to edit one of my lists, and hopefully it will help you figure out how to edit some of your own. So deck editing, in my opinion, and like making your own decks is one of the fun parts of TCGs. Being able to look at a card that you find inspires you and come up with a list of 60 cards to reinforce it, to be able to make it work and then sit down at the table and see it work for the first time is a really satisfactory thing. If you don't like building your own decks, that's totally cool too. Grabbing a list that somebody else made and having that aha moment when it all just works together perfectly is a fantastic feeling. And I love it. I really like it. I will say I hate the hours of losing to get the deck to be the point where I want it. But when it does start to work out, it's fantastic. So what do you do about adding new cards? What do you figure out how to add, and kind of how do you go from that? So I'm going to give you my example here that I'm working on. I've got a couple different lists that we're working on, but this is my supportive girlfriends list. I'll put it up right here. And I'm going to show you kind of like the basics of what to do. So first off, you need to start with an initial list. I have ripped this deck apart a couple times. This is my, not most recent list, but this is my more effective version of the list. And as you can see from this list, the basics are established. Its colors are established. It is Amber Sapphire. It is built around support and princesses, and it's kind of a mid-range deck with a couple control aspects to it, but not enough to make it a control deck. So that's it. I've defined my deck. I've defined its colors, I've defined its archetype, and I've defined kind of like its strategies or its synergies, which would be the colors are obviously Amber Sapphire, the archetype is mid-range with a splash of control, and the synergies are princess and support. So what do we do next? Well, first we have to define the basic core of our list, and then from there we know what cards are able to be cut and what cards must stay in order to make the deck work. So how do we figure this out? Well, let's look at the key cards first. First of all, Mini Sweetheart Princess is what this deck was built around. The idea that she could just get rid of a character with power 5 or greater was a very exciting one to me. And so thus the World's Greatest Criminal Mind went in as well because it does the exact same thing. Just it doesn't have to be exerted with that one. So the two of them worked together because they gave me 8 cards that essentially got rid of a character that was big. Well, how do I make my opponent's characters big? Well, support. So I need to put in some support cards. The best support card is Alice because it gives everybody support, which meant that I've now got my colors defined with those two. So I put in more cards that have support. So Mulan, there's like Mulan, there's Basil, there's all that stuff. So like we've got some good support cards, but Alice is definitely the one that goes in the must be included. And depending on what other options are out there, they'll go in the maybe one. Next one I have, so I'm going to put in the Mulan Considerate Diplomat because we are going to go princess heavy in this, and she does really help us draw cards from princesses. And then we're going to put in the 2 Auroras that I've got here. So Aurora Holding Court and Dreaming Guardian. Dreaming Guardian protects our princesses, and Aurora Holding Court gets us princess discounts, which if we're going to go princess heavy is going to get us a bunch of characters out a turn earlier. Last 2 that I have in my definite core list are the Queen Censor Core because that is a passive lore game from princesses, which we're going to be putting on the field anyways. And then Ludwig. Ludwig is one of our only ways to interact with our opponent's hand, and that can be really important to be able to get rid of their non-character cards that are going to be problematic to us, like Under the Sea, or removal spells. Gets rid of a bunch of things. So when I kind of add up the numbers that I have in each of these, for each of these cards, it gives me a list of 32 uncuttable cards. Those are the cards that must be in my list in order to make my list work. Now, I only have, where is it? I only have Alice as far as support goes in here, which means that I need to be able to be putting a lot more support in it to actually make this this list work. So where do we go to now? Now we look at kind of all of the options that we had in my list, and we see kind of how they, if they're, cuttable or not. So first off, let's look at support. So I have Basil. He's a 1-drop. He has support. He is an auto include 4 of in this list. However, there's a better card that's coming out in Whispers. We'll talk about that in a second. Next one, I have Mulan as the 3-drop, the free spirit one. She, again, is a 3-drop, 2/3 with support, auto include because she's a princess. So she goes in there first as something that, unless there's a better princess out there, she's going to be in it. Clarabelle also goes in my list of like necessary support cards. I'm only going to put 2 of her in my, I like really would like her in the list. I ended up cutting her, or at least for now. But she is one of a really good support card, and she supports support. So Clarabelle goes in that like good support. Guys, support in this case could be 2 different things. It is supportive for the deck, but it's also like the support mechanic. Then let's look at some other cards. So Beast. The Beast is good for the princess strategy and synergy. So he's going to go in there as a 2 of. He's a 5-drop, so he's expensive. So I don't necessarily want 4 of him, especially with my 5-drop slot already being clogged up by Auroras and Mulans. And whenever I play this deck, Beast is like the 3rd one as far as my priority goes out of those ones. So he's not going to be a 4 of. But I do like that he makes my princesses hit harder, and he gives them a bonus to the defense. So he's definitely going in there as a 2 of. Next one is Kita. I really like Kita. I think she's a 4 of, but I'm going to put 2 of her in this initial list to make sure that there's room for the 4 of her. Kita does help us filter our draws and helps us ramp as well. She has been kind of key to winning the game a lot of the times for me. So if I break that down, that is 45 cards, 43 when I inevitably end up cutting Clarabelle because I want more princesses. Which means I have 15 to 17 kind of flex spots to be able to add to the list or take from my current list and add them in. So where do we go now? Now we look at our options. So I'm going to look at everything. I'm not just going to look at new stuff. I'm going to look at everything that is in core because it's very possible that something new came out that really synergizes well with what I have going on. And we want to make sure that we're not missing something that we wrote off earlier that all of a sudden works well now. So we start with our basic kind of synergies, which is support and princesses. I'm going to start with support first, and then we'll move on to princesses. And the last thing you'll do, which I don't really get into right now, but the last thing you'll do is go through all the rest of the cards and see if you're missing something glaring that is good. So support first. Support is key. I don't have that many support characters in the list currently, and I personally want at least a quarter of the deck to be support. I want more, and Alice does let me have more because she gives everybody support. But I want at least 15 cards just with support on their own because it is so key to the strategy. And when I took them out and made it like 12, all of a sudden the deck seemed to fall apart. So 15 is my number. So let's kind of look at that. We have, where's my support? There we go. So we have our support options here. We'll put up our support options here. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the princesses that have support because that's our other synergy that we want to work around. Elowen, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm going to have to go watch that movie to figure it out. So she is going to replace Basil. She has the exact same stat line as Basil. She's a 2/1 with support, but she's a princess, which means that I can take Basil out and add her in because she now works with all the princess stuff. She gets bigger with the Beast. She is cheaper with Aurora. I was gonna say Mulan. She's cheaper with Aurora, and she kind of works with the rest of the deck that way. So, and she gains this lore from the Sensor Core. So, Elowen is going to be added in, and Basil's gonna be taken out, which doesn't affect my numbers here. It still puts me at like 15 to 17 spots that I'm looking for. The Queen is another one. I know I said princesses, but princesses / queens. I'm going to leave her in the maybe pile. I did play with her a bunch. I just wasn't using her ability. She does have support. So she's going to stay in my maybe potential pile, which like I'll actually take her out of like my box and sleeve her up, and I'll put her in a separate deck box as like my sideboard, maybe board, if you will. But she doesn't make it into my main list right now. Rapunzel's a new card. So she looks great. So like the Off for Adventure Rapunzel. She does have support. She costs 2. And those are like, I'm really light on my 2-drop slot anyways. So she's going to be included because I think that she looks great. She does have an additional thing, which is that whenever one of your characters is chosen for support, for one instance until the beginning of your next turn, they take no damage whenever they would be given damage. So if your opponent challenges them once, they take no damage. If they challenge twice, they'll take damage from the second challenge, not the first one. So she does protect supported characters, and if that's kind of a main strategy of the deck, she looks phenomenal. I can't wait to actually test her out. So the next one that we'll take a look at are, so those are kind of like our princesses, which we can add a couple of those in there. We can change some out. And now we can look at kind of like our other support options. So there's a lot of support options in these colors, but not necessarily a lot of them synergize with the princess strategy. And so I've kind of eliminated a lot of them just because they weaken that princess part of the deck. And I am leaning a lot heavier into princesses than support, although I want support to be like a main part of this deck as well. If we look at actions and items, we do have Helping Hand. Which right now, I mean, I'm not necessarily worried about Uninkables. I've only got like 5 Uninkables in the deck right now. But just the one-time instance of support, I don't know if it's good enough. The drawing a card's nice, but right now it's still going to go into the maybe we'll try it out if we need more support options, but I'd prefer support just to be straight on a character. The Atlantean Crystal is a neat card, so it gives one instance of support, but since it's an item, it sticks around and you can use each turn, and there's a lot of times where like mid to late game, I don't do a lot with my ink, so being able to give something support that didn't have support would be cool. It doesn't make it in the like definite pile, but it goes into the maybe pile for now. So those are kind of like the support options that I think are worth kind of adding to the potential list. Now we're going to look at princesses. So princesses is the other strategy. So when we look at princesses, there's a lot of options. We don't want to go above 5 ink because that's kind of where like my top out curve is. I don't have a huge amount of ramp in the deck, and so it's not like we're going to get up really high in the ink for this. So the characters that, in my opinion, look interesting are Vanellope and Tiana. Those are the ones that I have not put in from previous sets. Tiana is obviously a great protecting card. She can come in on turn 2, and she makes it so that everything that challenges has to pay more ink or they get a minus to their strength. Now, the minus to their strength is really important because on Tiana, it's just while challenging. With Vanellope, it's until the start of your next turn. So Vanellope just makes them smaller, which is cool. However, it does really not work with the support blow up big character strategy. So Vanellope could definitely work as something, but she's definitely not going to be a 4 of. The important thing to note would be to do your support stuff, blow up things with Many of the World's Greatest Criminal first, and play princesses afterwards to shrink everything for the next turn. That becomes kind of like an intricate strategy, which I am not necessarily not a fan of. I like that idea, but I do think Tiana works better. I would absolutely love a princess, side note, I would absolutely love a princess that pulls songs back from the discard pile like the Amethyst and Amber Maribel does. Would love that. If Ravensburger hears that, you could put that on a princess. I would love it. Okay, let's go back and look at princesses for a second here. So looking at other princesses, I have the 1-drop, or so the 1 ink Vanellope. She is going to go into the deck because she is a 1-drop that hits a little bit harder, and so she could take out some other characters. The Jasmines are neat too. The Jasmines have never really made it into an actual list, but the fact that the 1-drop Jasmines heal something or give something resist, I think is a really a neat interaction. I really like the idea of playing an Aurora turn 1, turn 2 like playing a Ludwig or a Rapunzel, and then questing with the Aurora to play a Jasmine and giving Aurora resist, which just makes Aurora harder to kill. I don't think it makes her impossible to kill, but like in my mind, that is a cool thing. The 2-drop Aurora is very interesting as well. She's just kind of a vanilla character that could be shifted onto, and she doesn't get rid of my Aurora that gives me princess discounts. Quest for 2, so she's an interesting one. She kind of goes into the maybe if we have empty spots for her. Although the fact that she doesn't have like an ability that synergizes with the deck right away does make her kind of a lower priority on there. We have the 3-drop Belle that you can play for free if you get rid of an item. I do like her as well. She is a 3/3, so she is a little bit on the tougher side. And we can sacrifice the Sensor Core to play her for free if we need to. A lot of the times the lore from the Sensor Core seems better than just kind of like playing the Belle for free. But it is an interesting thing to note because sometimes it could make the difference in the game. So this Belle is going to make it into my list as well. The unchallengeable Snow White. I think she's very interesting. I really liked her in a couple of the lists, but the fact that she's just a 2/2 makes it so that she still is easy for your opponent to get rid of. It is not that difficult for them to move, say, especially Blurple, move damage around to get rid of her. She can be under the siege, so even though I really like her, for 4 ink, I don't think she makes it into like the big part or like the definite part of this deck. Although she is still one that I will, every time I make edits, I'll relook at her and consider and ask if she fits into it with the current meta. So now we're gonna look at a couple of the higher cost cards. So we have the new Jasmine. So whenever she quests, if she's boosted, she heals things. I think that's really cool. I really like that idea. I would love it to work. I just would want to make sure that my characters are actually getting damage. So I'm not necessarily like challenging with my characters that much. The idea is that I want to support. So in order to support, you have to quest with them. And like a smart opponent is going to challenge into my characters to get rid of them and not just leave damage around. But I do really like that idea of the Jasmine. So we'll see. Cinderella is also one from the new set. First of all, the Enchanted's beautiful. I just want to play her simply because of the Enchanted. I think it's my favorite Enchanted in this set. However, Cindy is a little bit of a problem in this deck just because she comes down on, I think, 4, right? And she ramps if we played a princess. So she ramps at the end of turn. We had to have played a princess. Princess heavy deck. We should be able to do that. But we don't get to use the ink. So she only kind of ramps us at the end of the turn. I don't know. I want to try it and see. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I'm not sold on it yet. I don't think that, I think she could be good. And especially if the new Daisy actually is something that like people are playing and your ink comes into play tapped anyways. I think that kind of comes out in the wash and she becomes a bit of a better one to play there. But either way, I would like to try her, but she's not going into like a definite making the core of the list. She's going into the let's try it and see. Last one, I guess, that kind of comes out from Whispers in the Well is the new Sapphire Rapunzel. She's kind of cool. Giving something -5 strength could be neat, but you can achieve that with Tiana's and Vanellope's, and they come in earlier. So I think the Tiana's kind of beat out the new Sapphire Rapunzel. So that's kind of that. Last thing that we would do is go through the rest of our options that are not support and not princesses. There is one more card that I'm putting in the deck that is not from either of those, which is the Horseman Strikes. It's an action that draws you a card and then you get rid of an evasive character. I just think that sounds great. 3-drop, play it, get rid of Dumbo, draw a card. So that is definitely going to go into the deck as well. So let us take a look at, I guess, what the next step is. So once we have our core list, once we have our maybe list, once we have like our secondary maybe list, if you will, then we have to put something together and actually try it. So there are 2 kind of strategies on this. One is you put 60 cards together with mostly 4-ofs to give that a shot. That way you are upping your chances of drawing the cards that you're trying and see how they work. Another complete opposite one is you build your core list and then you put like 2-ofs. For all the cards that you want to try, and you see which ones feel good. That way, you get more options and selections and whatnot. We go back and forth on it. Some cards don't get put a lot of in. It's just kind of if we see it, we'll see how it works. If we don't see it, that's all right. So that's kind of how the play. And there's no right answer. Do what you like. Get a deck list together and give it a shot. So when you are play testing, actually first let's go with my list here. So this is version, I guess, 2.1, 2 meaning like the next set. So this is version 2.1 of Supportive Girlfriends. You can see here, like I said, a lot of the deck lists will remain generally unchanged. I have Auroras, I have the Eloans, which is pretty much just a Basil replacement. Vanellope, so that part has stayed the same. Ludwig also has stayed the same here. I've added the new Rapunzels. I've added 4 of her because I think that she looks really good and I want to be able to draw her. I've cut down on Mulans. I've got 1 less of the support Mulans in order to make room for Tiana's, which I think Tiana will work. Everyone at Set Champs like, why aren't you playing Tiana? And I just kind of shrugged and said, I don't know. There were better princesses. But looking at the amount of decks out there that are actually challenging me now in our local meta here, yeah, I can see how Tiana should make it back in the list. That's probably one that I'd go with based on what the local people are playing. Alice stays in, Belle stays in, the mini obviously is going to stay in. So you can see kind of that is what the bulk of the list has changed. I've put in 3 new cards. I've put in Elowin, which is just, again, straight Basil replacement. Rapunzel, because I think she looks awesome. And the Horseman Strikes, because it's a way to get rid of evasive characters. A lot of those. So I will give this a try. And I guess, how do you play test properly to be able to figure out what you're doing? Or how good the deck is. First of all, you don't just want to test once and then rip your list apart. You could have gotten a bad draw. Your opponent could have gotten a good draw. It takes often a couple of times of playing with the deck in order to actually know what worked, what didn't. Because there's a bunch of things like the first 3, 4, 5, 10 games that you might not see the way the synergy works, or you might not draw that synergy. So you want to give it at least 10 games with an unchanged list. And you want to be able to play it and record it. I don't necessarily mean like with a camera. You can write things down. You want to write down if you went first, because if you went first or second can make a big difference, because play and beyond the draw, your strategy might change a little bit. Next, you want to know what your opponent was playing, because if you see that you're consistently losing to, say, Blurple, and Blurple's a big part of the meta, you might want to make your deck adjustments based on that. If you're consistently losing to Ruby Steel Fight Club, and there's not a lot of that, you might not have to change your deck for that list. You might just want to hope you don't run into it. You're also going to want to make any notes of any major play mistakes that you made, or things that you saw after the fact. If you drew really badly, all that type of stuff. So just kind of make your notes there. And then after 10 to 20 games, you can look at your notes and you can see what cards consistently feel bad, what cards consistently feel good, what cards consistently under or overperform, and then you adjust your list from there. You go back to your maybe list and you sub some things in and you sub some things out, and then you test again. And it is a never-ending testing thing, because in 3 months there's going to be a new set. And we're going to make these changes all again. But that is the fun part of this. The decks are always evolving, and I do really like that part of it. So yeah, that's what I've got today. I can't wait for me to get my hands on Whispers in the Well so that I can open these cards and put them in my deck and actually get some testing done. I will definitely test this a whole bunch, and we'll put some videos up whenever we get some testing done of it so you can see what it looks like. But this is my version 2.1 of Supportive Girlfriends. It really looks like it could be good. I'm going to the CCQ in Bologna, and I'm hoping to play this at the end of the month. So we'll see if it turns out to be good enough for that. I think I'm going to play it either way because I'm enjoying it. So that is what I've got for you today. Go and brew some lists and put some new stuff in, because the new set looks awesome.